We'll bring our meeting to order. Welcome to the Wednesday, June 11th, 2025 meeting of the Liberty Lake Planning Commission. We'll begin with our roll call, please.
Okay, Joe Mann,
Here.
Tom Stallberg,
Here.
Jim Baumker,
Here.
DG Garcia,
Here.
Charlie Jenks,
Here.
Dale Robbins, Bill Foyer,
Here.
Gene Huschel,
Here.
and Troy Mullenix.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We'll take a look at our agenda for today. Any additions or changes? If anyone sees?
Can I make a note that Dale just came in at 4:02?
Yep. Commissioner Robbins in at 4:02. Thank you. Motion on the agenda. There's a motion from
Second.
and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Charles.
Right. Commissioner Jenks and Commissioner Foyer.
Sorry.
Approval of the minutes. I have one change. Commissioner Robbins did contact us and we should add him to be excused from the last meeting. So that should go into the minutes. Motion to amend that with the excusing him. Move to approve. Thank you, Commissioner
Second.
Jenks. Second, Commissioner Foyer. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any other changes to the minutes? Motion to approve as amended. Thank you. Commissioner Robbins. Second. Mr. Thomas. Commissioner Stallberg. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. We get into our workshops, parks, recreation, and open space plan update. And we have a guest. Thank you for being here.
Okay, so I'm just gonna test this. Do you guys need me to use it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because we're recording.
Oh, okay, perfect. Well, hello, commissioners. Nice to meet all of you face to face. My name is Genevieve Dial. I am the project manager working on the parks plan, and I work at a local consulting firm called SCJ Alliance, and we've been hired by the city to support the parks plan update. So I'm going to give you all an overview today. Just a quick snapshot of who SCJ is. We've been around since 2006. Our first office was in Lacey, but we have about 12 planners here in the Spokane office. I'm from Spokane, so I have been coming to Liberty Lake with my own kids for a long time. So it's really an honor to be on this project and get the opportunity to work locally. SCJ has obviously planners, but we also have landscape architects and we have engineers, which kind of brings a unique opportunity when we do a parks plan to offer some insights into infrastructure needs that might be needed in the park system, and also to look at some of that design aspect that our landscape architect team can bring to it. So we'll be looking to work within the expertise of all of that at SCJ as we develop the plan. The team specifically from SCJ that's going to work on the parks plan. I'm the lead as the project manager. Next there you see Chris Overdorf. He's been a long time in the parks industry. He's been a planning consultant for a long time. He is our principal in charge of our landscape architecture program at SCJ. He's done, I think, over 50 parks plans in his career. So he brings some unique insights and expertise to the project. Lauren Schubring is based out of our Spokane office, and she's super passionate about public engagement. That's kind of one of her specialties. So she's taking the lead on developing the public participation plan and some of the unique activities for engaging Liberty Lake residents. Eddie is working on some of the contextual community demographic profile information. Corey is going to make all of the maps that help us visualize and illustrate some of the needs and opportunities in Liberty Lake. Josh is another landscape architect. So if we see a need for maybe some design components or schematics, things like that, that could support implementation of projects, Josh is our guy for that. And Jay is going to make the plan look beautiful. We found that graphics are just a wonderful way to communicate really quickly ideas, concepts, and goals so that the plan ultimately is very easy to implement and user-friendly. So as we thought about this project, there were kind of three main pillars that we're rooted in as we think about project understanding and our approach. The first being, we really want this plan to be structured in a way that sets the city up for success if you're looking to go after future funding. I used to work at the Recreation and Conservation Office, so we're really familiar with their various grant programs and the cycle of those programs, and we want to make sure that this plan meets their eligibility criteria for being certified, so that if you choose to go forward with any projects and funding, you're ready to go. Outreach is really kind of the foundation of all of this. We want this plan to be representative of what we hear in the community. It's really your plan, and we're just facilitators of that information. And then finally, as planners, we're very familiar also with the Growth Management Act requirements, and there are some new statutes for park planning specifically. So we'll make sure that the plan sets you up for success in terms of aligning with state requirements, and that it can be easily incorporated into your comp plan that I know you're also working on right now. So this is my first time presenting to you. I think Lisa might have shared just kind of a high level scope of work, but since it's my first time in front of you, I want to make sure you're all familiar with what it is we're doing and what's included in the scope. So I'm just going to kind of walk through that a little bit, and then I'll get into the details of where we're at right now a little bit later in the presentation. But anytime we start off with whether it's a comprehensive plan update or it's a parks plan, the first thing we want to do is get familiar with the city we're working with. Most of us that are on this project are from Spokane and live in Spokane, so it's been easier than other projects to do that. But we look at, what are the demographics in Liberty Lake? What are the population trends? This plan is supposed to set you up at least for the next 6 years in terms of capital improvement kind of priorities, but also fit into your comp plan that is that 20-year planning horizon. So we're trying to look at the context, not only short-term right now, but also long-term with what's coming to Liberty Lake. So we're working on that now. And then also we're just going to get really familiar with the documents you already have at hand. You already have a Park and Rec master plan where you've done some of this work. We want to be familiar with that. We want to know your policies and procedures. And so we're just getting familiar with everything so that we have the right context to make appropriate recommendations. The next piece in our scope of work is doing an inventory and assessment. So that includes a whole variety of things, starting with what types of parks do you have? How big are they? What's in them? Who uses them? Where are they at in the city? What are the gaps? What's the condition of what's in them? Is there a good variety of amenities and facilities within those? The playground equipment you have, does it have 5 years left in it? Was it brand new and you're looking at 20 years left in it? How's the security? How's the lighting? What's the visibility like? We'll be doing the same thing for your public art. I have park tree canopy on here too. That's a new state requirement with the Growth Management Act that they want us to map the tree canopy in your park system. So we'll be looking to do that. Next slide. And like I touched on, public outreach and engagement, we're going to do a whole variety of things to try to really get a lot of input from the community and try to do it in a variety of ways so that we can reach all the segments of the community that we can. And, you know, not burn people out by just using the same engagement activities that they see everywhere on every type of project. So we do have the typical survey, but we're doing some interviews. We're really collaborating closely with your Community Engagement Commission. We're looking at those priorities to make sure that they're informing the capital improvement recommendations we come up with. We're going to do just some pop-ups, meet people where they are rather than asking people to come to us. We actually have one planned for the 20th at Pavilion Park. So stay tuned for that if you guys want to come by. So we're going to look at just different outreach channels, different events that are local where people are already going to be at. It's easier to engage with folks when they're already present and there and excited to be at a local event. Next slide. So then from there, we develop kind of looking closely at the demands and a needs analysis. So you already have some level of service standards developed as a city from doing this process before. We're going to take a look at that and see if it's still aligned with what we're hearing from the community, what we're hearing from all of you and from staff. A lot of, I guess, other firms, they kind of have a standardized approach for level of service, where the National Recreation and Park Association has a quantitative kind of statistical approach for, okay, you're a city of this size, you should roughly have this many acres of park for the number of people you have. And that's one method, but what that method misses is some of that qualitative data, you know, is that equitable? What does your specific community want for the level of service? So we'll be doing a more robust analysis of level of service. We're also going to look at other communities like in size and demographic to Liberty Lake. So we're going to look at 3 others and see what are they doing for level of service standards. Are you in line with that? Are you hitting it out of the park? No pun intended in terms of your level of service. Are you way below? So we'll have that as a reference point to help you kind of make those decisions. And then we're also going to look at what are some local trends in terms of parks and recreation. What's happening in the broader region. You know, Liberty Lake sits between Post Falls, Spokane Valley, Spokane County. So there's more to the recreational system than just Liberty Lake's parks itself. And then we'll look at national trends. What's kind of trending? We all know pickleball's trending, right? And just setting Liberty Lake up for success to meet the needs of trends that could be coming this way.
Jenny, what are the 3 comparables?
We haven't fully identified those yet. You know, I want to choose communities that are like in size population wise, but I also want to choose communities that have the same kind of demographic profile. And there's other cities of like size, but they're on the west side. And so it's not really the comparison I want. So welcome feedback if you all are interested in a particular city that you think, you know, you really want to know, well, what are they doing?
Cheney's probably our closest,
Yeah, we thought about,
but it's also a college town.
right,
Demographics are different.
right. Yep.
Are you restricted to Washington State? Can you go to Idaho? Using Idaho City?
We could, not all of the Idaho cities are necessarily doing these level of service using that methodology. So they might not have that data point for us, but we could look at it. We could just map how many acres of parks do they have and what's their population. We could do that. So are you thinking like Post Falls?
Sure.
That makes sense. It's right there. Okay, good ideas.
People use it.
Right. Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. That's two good suggestions. Yeah, next slide. And then we're ultimately going to review the goals and objectives you already have on the books. And we're going to take a look and say, do those still align with state statutes, for example? Do they align with the kind of vision and mission and direction that you all see yourself going? If not, what do we need to do to bring them into alignment? And so we'll do that kind of policy framework analysis and then come up with some recommendations. We're going to do a touch point with the community and just make sure that the previous parks plan's vision and mission still resonates with people. And then ultimately offer you all some recommendations for consideration. So I touched on this a little bit already. So that was kind of the general scope of work. And then I was just going to go into detail on a couple of the pieces. But I talked about this, I guess, a little already. The level of service being a unique to Liberty Lake kind of qualitative analysis. So for example, let's say a value that rises to the top is that you have equal distribution of parks throughout the city. So maybe you want a 10-minute walk shed. Everybody can walk to a park within 10 minutes of their house. Could be a measure that we use. And so we'll map it. Where are those neighborhoods where you can't walk to a park in 10 minutes? Do we want to prioritize park development in those areas? We could look at, public health. Are there enough trails to get people active in the parks that you have? So those are just some examples of what some of that qualitative analysis could look like. And we'll also look at the trends, like I talked about, in other communities. What are other communities using as an additional metric for their level of service model? And then
Is this map? The one that we're gonna be using?
no.
Okay, I got a couple of more parks for you then.
Yeah, it just
It's
supposed to be, kind of relevant and pretty.
It is.
Yeah, we're still working on a lot of the maps.
Are you guys gonna be using some of the like private parks, like Legacy Ridge, for example, too, in there, or are you gonna be leaving those out?
I think we're going to do two things. We're going to map and inventory what the city owns and maintains,
Okay.
right? Because those are within your direct control. But as part of that larger context, other people, your HOAs have parks in them that are serving those communities, and maybe you're providing that 10-minute walk, even though it's not a city park.
Oh.
So we'll do both.
Perfect.
Yeah. So one thing I was really excited about when I got this project is that you all have an arts commission in addition to just a Parks and Rec commission. That's pretty unique. You don't see that all that often. And so when I talked about inventory, we're also going to be looking at your art inventory. And you have a 5-year strategic plan for art, and you have some policies for art in your community. So we're going to be giving those a review as well when we do goal and policy recommendations, and making sure that it aligns with what we hear from the community as well. This is a little hard to read, but I just wanted you all to know kind of, we got started in late March. We are pretty much through some of that community demographic profile context piece of the scope of work that I talked about. We're full into the public engagement piece. We had a kickoff meeting a couple of weeks ago. We have another pop-up event, next Friday. So we're definitely in the thick of that. Meanwhile, we're doing the inventory and assessment piece. And then the needs analysis comes next. So started late March, and we're planning to bring to you a pretty finished product by October. So so the rest of the slides are kind of showing you what we've developed so far, just to start showing you what some of those deliverables look like and what they include. One of the first things we set out to do after the community profile was developing a public participation plan, so that we can get really intentional about who are we meeting with, why are we meeting with them, what do we want to hear when we talk to them, what kind of information are we looking for, where do we go, and just making sure we have a pretty good roadmap for how we do that. So far, I just wanted you all to know that you're a part of that public participation effort, as is the Parks and Arts Commission and the Engagement Commission. So we have biweekly meetings with Lisa and Jen Camp and others. I've presented a couple times now to the Parks and Arts Commission, so they're really aware of what we're doing and involved. I've presented to the Community Engagement Commission, and we share materials with them. They've been really supportive in helping kind of get the word out about all of this. And obviously I'm here today, and I think the plan is for me to come back in October and show you kind of what came out of this process. So in terms of how are we getting the word out, communication channels, you all have a Parks and Recreation webpage, so we're using that to spread the word. I think you have even on your landing page, you have kind of like a rotating image of like stuff that's happening. So the engagement opportunities are shown there too. David's been helping us with some social media blasts. This went into the Liberty Lake Splash publication. And we have a list of stakeholders that we're sending emails to directly. And then, like I said, the other two commissions are supportive in terms of reaching out to folks. Yeah.
Genevieve, if you're gonna have a website and it be only the city website, I strongly recommend you put it also on the community page. It's called Liberty Lake Community. Because it has it reaches way more people than the city page and gets probably 50 or 100 times better response. So
Is it a city hosted?
it is not
West-
city
it's
hosted.
a-
We have a couple of city council members that are actually moderating it, but it's the one that more information is
Oh.
transferred back and forth
It's on
on that
Facebook.
page.
It's like it's a Facebook
It's on
page.
Facebook.
It's on Facebook, yeah.
Got it. Yep. Okay. Thank you for that.
So-
I don't know if David's already posting stuff there.
History within the website and within the Facebook page for the city is just, instead of fighting it, just if you put it out to the community, you'll have a better engagement and you'll get better responses.
Yeah, yeah, love that. We were talking earlier this week about even creating like a Facebook event where people would then know to go to like the pop-up next Friday, for example. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, that would be a great place to post that. And
Mhm.
just to add to what Tom was saying, on that group page, it's a lot of people from outside Liberty Lake too. It's not just people in Liberty Lake. So
Yeah.
you're gonna get a mix of people, a really good mix, and probably a lot of good feedback.
That'd be great. I'd love to post the survey on there because I
Yeah.
think right now we have just under 40 survey responses. So
Anything you do, if you want it, we can do it too. I can do it from my page. Troy can do it from his.
you could share it to
Yeah.
like your friends and
Right.
Yeah, because if you want that feedback, that's the best way to get it.
all right.
Well, you guys have the flyer.
I have a question on that then. You just identified that not of however many members are in that Facebook group, many live outside of the city. So if you're gonna use that as a measure, you have to take it with a grain of salt in my mind, because we're talking about the parks and that service within the city limits. So how do you take and get feedback from that source and still apply a grain of salt to it and produce something that you can use for the benefit of the
You,
city?
you want feedback from non-citizens, I guess is the question.
That's my.
But they're park users,
That's the short version,
the
yes.
people
Right, and it
around the
brings
lake.
people into the city. So
Yeah,
I think it's a double-edged sword where you want that information, but also, yeah, like you said, it does kind of skew the information for residents. So yeah.
That pavilion park is used by the people around the lake. And it's probably close to, I don't know, 30-40% of the people, because it's their park.
No, I get
It
it.
came out of their deal. And Orchard Park, we bring people all the way from probably almost to the apartments down on Mission that come to that park. Rocky Hill probably is more of a Liberty Lake, but I wouldn't be surprised that we get people from Post Falls coming to it too. And do we want feedback from the park users? Because if you want to, and it's the same with the library. We have an awful lot of people that use our library that are within the city too.
Mhm.
So here's a thought, if you're gonna use, or if you're gonna push this out on a social media page that encompasses both Liberty Lake residents and non-residents, you may just want to tailor the survey to that sort of a venue by adding a simple question. You a resident?
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's it.
absolutely.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The last 6 questions, say maybe 5 questions of the survey are some of those demographic questions. Where do you live? Do you live in Liberty Lake? If you don't, do you live in Post Falls? So we'll get a sense of where the people coming from, and then we can filter that out a little bit so you can see, well, what are the responses from people who live here? What are the responses from people who come from outside? And we'll get some other demographic data too, you know, like what are the ages roughly and things like that.
I think that's an important part of this discussion.
Yep.
That's all
Yeah.
I'll say.
I agree.
Yeah,
Always is, because we're the ones that are paying for it. and a
Exactly.
lot of
Thank
people.
you.
right.
That's the part well, that's what we're here for.
Right.
We're here to there's nobody here that's, not in the city. And, but we don't put up walls either.
Right. Right. You make great
Actually-
parks and people are gonna want to use them.
If I may clarify, we actually have one representative on the planning commission that is.
I know that he's not necessarily, I think of him as ours.
But that's by design.
Yeah.
Because we want to engage those that are.
That have property in Maui. We got two of them. Is that what you meant? I got you.
Fine. So when we're engaging with the public, some of the things that we're asking folks about are the current parks, current trails, open space, the types of uses in those places. We're asking about the public art, where it is, what type of art it is, for feedback on that. We're asking people about the bicycle network and its connectivity, and opportunities there. We're asking about the types of facilities they use in your park system. So many people have talked about loving the concerts, and the events in the parks, and the fact that you have a stage that facilitates that. So we're trying to get some data on that, and what types of improvements do people desire. How about programming? You have some of the parks, you offer soccer practice and things like that. Is there other programming needs that would be good to consider? And then just, various expectations and preferences from the various user groups. You've got, people that want to, an older demographic that are looking for a certain experience in a park that might be different than a young family with kids. So just making sure that we represent and we have questions that solicit input from all the various demographics.
Real quick. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
In your experience, if you compare Liberty Lake to an analog city, similar size, similar build out, have you seen a change in what people want? For example, in Liberty Lake, we have a lot of really great trails. We have a lot of passive parks. Over time, that demand dynamic changes. People want more muscle facilities, soccer pitches, little league fields. Have you seen those changes in analog cities over time? Do you expect that here?
A little bit. I think last year I sat on RCO's local parks advisory review committee. And so I witnessed, 62 parks projects from around the state. And the theme I saw most commonly pop up was making more accessible parks. So for kids with disabilities or sensory issues and things like that, and making sure the equipment is appropriate and well suited for that part of the population. I saw a lot of projects about that. I saw a lot of trail projects, a lot more interest, I think, in active recreation. The e-bike thing has really taken off as trails are a pretty big hot item right now. And then more passive, just access to nature, people looking for that more kind of contemplative, peaceful experience, as opposed to just your typical, you have picnic benches and you have a playground. That's kind of, and then pickleball. For real, you hear that everywhere.
And then
Yeah.
here's a question for you. Let's just say through this process, we do end up with, through this going out, reaching out to the community, we do hear a lot about, we want more little league fields, muscle facilities that take a lot of acreage. Given our status in terms of build out, how do we then get that land? Do we have in the code, for example, an allocation of land per unit in the subdivision or code? Or is it simply a capital, the taxpayers just buy the land and we all suck it up.
So we do not right now have a requirement for dedication of open space as part of our subdivision ordinance. Many ordinances do. One of the things that you got to realize is that as we are working on our comprehensive plan, as we're wrapping that up, the next thing we're doing is completely overhauling our development code. And so there will be an opportunity for us to look at something like that if there is a disconnect. But it is important to realize, and one of the reasons why we said it was so important to do this parks plan right now is because we know we're going to hit build out in the next 20 years.
Right.
And so we have to plan for that now. So it's a critical time in the growth of the city to make those decisions. But the other thing I'm going to say is that, again, as we look at residential development, most of those developments already have entitlement. And what that means is that they already have a approved preliminary plat. So any requirements for a subdivision to dedicate open space wouldn't apply to the majority of the already planned residential growth, which encompasses the vast majority of the open lands within the city.
So we would have to negotiate with them if we see the need for a 10-acre park, for example, and it's not in their plan, we've got to negotiate an acquisition from those folks?
Potentially, if they already have entitlement. Again, one of the things that we can look at is there are some lands that are not entitled at this point. There are some available lands, and we need to be looking at that. We also need to be looking at opportunities to partner with Central Valley School District for shared facilities. The city of Spokane is doing a phenomenal job of marrying their parks to the school facilities so that they can, so that the open space can be shared and the cost of that open space can be shared. So there are some opportunities for things like that, but now is the time for us to kind of develop those plans.
So some changes to the development code that would allow for getting land based upon some number per unit developed is something that you would consider, or is it too late?
Well, it's not too late. And so one of the things I would say, and keep in mind, we've just gone through the housing chapter, so I know you know this. I know this is fresh in your minds. It's there's kind of a balancing act. Even like if you're doing multifamily housing as an example, you can require a certain percentage of common open space be developed to serve those residents.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a balancing act, because at the same time, we're trying to increase housing and reduce the cost of housing. And so so you've got a number of different things going on at the same time.
You can have it both ways if people know upfront what they're going to be required to do.
Potentially, yes. And so again, those are all conversations that we can have as we have a better understanding of what those park needs are. That's why it was so critical to have this study undertaken as part of the comprehensive plan. And again, I think that the last time we did a park study, it's extremely dated, and it's extremely, it really doesn't give us good guidance for what we do in this next
It's
year.
to see if there's any change, what it is. Because it is dated. They're great parks. But maybe the demand curve, the demand type facility has changed, so we're gonna have to respond to
Exactly.
this.
So again, I see this as a great opportunity in this particular time, in this particular moment, to really, as we're looking at our comp plan, as we're looking at our development code, to really look at what we can do to realize the community's vision for its parks as well.
So good segue, Charlie. Thank you for my question, and it's to Lisa. So if we were to, for instance, again, following up on your example, need to have more ball fields, which we have heard consistently now for probably the last almost 10 years. If a field was developed for a ball field, and if the city was able to charge for usage of that field for certain things. Would it be possible to, in this next go around of our looking at the development, would we potentially be able to change the zoning from commercial to what would you call a ball field?
So it could fall into several categories.
Because we have a lot of,
Is open space.
okay,
But it's possible, one of the challenges that we have, and we allow parks in just about every zone anyhow, so.
Okay.
So it's not a big deal. But one of the challenges that we have is the concept of down zoning.
right.
And so if somebody owns that property and we as the city say, oh, I know it's a light industrial piece, but we got too much light industrial. We're gonna turn you into open space.
Which hits them,
Is
hits them in the pocket because they won't get as much money out of it.
Exactly. So
Okay, that was my question.
So yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
something we have to be very careful about.
You know the
We
land
have
I'm
to-
thinking of.
We have to partner with the
May have to
property
buy it.
owners. Yeah, yes,
Well, Centennial may just donate it.
Lisa, I promise. I looked at that map that you were kind enough to put on the screen that showed all the parks in the city. And then there was this line that followed the Spokane River. Where is that line? Is it the high water mark or
so
where is that line?
So
Well,
our
something-
property boundary is just south of the state park that is the Centennial Trail. So the Centennial Trail properties are actually within the unincorporated county, as is the river. We abut directly that, and it's actually a great benefit. Again, I think Jen indicated that when you look at the parks plan, you have to look at the context of the recreational facilities that are in the vicinity and whether or not that's in our city. We know that our residents significantly use that Centennial Trail as part of their recreational opportunities, just as we do the state park or the county park. And in reality, the golf courses also play into it, even though it's, and as you all know, one of the reasons the city bought Trailhead Golf Course was not because they were in love with owning a golf course. They wanted to maintain that open space.
Question.
Yes.
As you talk about usage, and I'm only bringing this up for a very short conversation, but as you talk about the different usage of these parks, have you had, or do you think it's worthy to include, since we are very unique to the usage of golf carts in this city? Is that part of your equation? Is that part of your discussion?
I think it should be, because it is a unique feature here. We're looking at the trail network and the bicycle network.
That's what I was just looking at.
Yeah,
I see usage in a lot of spots here. And I mean, everybody, some use their golf carts differently than others.
I don't want to steal Jen's thunder here,
Okay.
but we also are undertaking the network analysis and looking at the transportation plan. It is a multimodal plan. And in fact, when we went out to get the data, we actually got data on, yes, you guessed it, golf carts. Yes, so we did, so we will have some of that. And I'm gonna, just a teaser, if you join us for our virtual town hall meeting tomorrow, we will be talking a little bit about golf cart safety.
good
Of course.
idea?
Question?
Yes.
In the past, I think the city has done a fabulous job in coordinating with Central Valley for using facilities, for example, the ball fields over there by the new elementary school. And I don't know if that is still an active effort on the part of the city to coordinate with Central Valley for those types of opportunities.
It absolutely is.
Good, good,
And in fact, I will share with you that we have a meeting scheduled with the school district
great.
related to the population and housing and having a conversation about that. We've already planted the seed.
Your head's set on the city's part.
Well, right now, so,
You,
well, I'm not. the
You're
only
like-
person- I'm not the only person in the room, but yes, we had that conversation initially with the school district. We're meeting with them again to talk about this. They've got 35 acres that they've set aside adjacent to Ridgeline School. There's also the remediation site where they're planting soccer fields, et cetera. There may be an opportunity to co-locate some facilities there. So
Okay.
there is, and by the way, it just happens to be in the quadrant of the city that you don't see any parks.
yeah, okay.
True.
Well, I think that's, that type of, effort to pursue the joint use, I think just, makes so much sense. And then the other question I had is, what level of coordination is there between, the city and the hub?
Well, there's actually a fair bit. We work with Phil very closely. The hub expansion, they will be going after TIF and LIFT funds to help fund that expansion. And the reality is that we will be entering into, if they go that route, we'll be entering into an interlocal agreement where the city will actually own the land, but they will actually maintain it.
I see. Where is that land at?
Where is the land right now? It's owned by the Hub LLC.
Right by the tractor.
Okay,
That side.
yeah,
It's directly
it's,
adjacent.
it's vacant now, isn't it?
It's next to so it's vacant. They're actually in the development process
Yeah.
right now.
What
It's
is the plan?
adjacent to Selkirk Middle School and north of the RVs on. Cachalo.
What is their plan?
What is their plan? They're doing multiple deals, but principally soccer fields. They have, they're adding some.
Will that be part of their inventory, you think?
Yes, we've talked about having that. Again, it's privately owned, but
Yeah.
it's part of
Okay.
the resources that are available to the community. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Mhm.
Good.
Yeah, we'll have kind of a regional context for recreational amenities that folks from Liberty Lake might be using, such as the hub or the county park or the Centennial Trail.
But it's a great question because
Mhm.
again, it's a great example of the city partnering
Right.
with other entities to make certain that the recreational needs of the community are being met.
It's kind of nice. I think it's kind of special and unique to have that type of relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, two things surfaced for me as we're discussing this. Swimming pool. Swimming pool.
Oh,
Is there a consideration for a municipal swimming pool? And then on our hopefully our new business in town, Top Golf, would they be wrapped up in this program somehow?
so that would be a kind of a different beast from the county park, the state trail, or the hub, because it really is a for-profit business. It's from.
They do let the high schools practice there for free,
Oh,
so,
do they?
yes, they do.
Oh, I didn't know.
Any of the golf teams that are in the area that identify with that, they'll let them practice.
A top call?
But there's that, several people.
Does anyone know if the Central Valley has a swimming pool?
No, they do not.
They do not, because again, the cost of maintenance and the liability long-term for that facility.
Supposed.
I will say that that is one of the things that I think that we talked about in the scope of this, is that we realized that there is a lot of interest in a pool and so that's part of the demand kind of analysis. But one of the things that's great is that as part of the parks plan, that Jen and her team are also really going to be looking at the life cycle cost for facilities. So it's not just what it costs to build it. What does it cost to maintain
maintain
it over the life cycle
Yeah.
of it? And I think those are important considerations for us as a city to realize the implications of that for all the facilities that we're considering.
Wouldn't the closest pool facility be the YMCA?
Yeah.
It is.
It
It
is.
is.
My question is then, how far outside of the city boundaries do you go to pull in, like the YMCA as a key facility for aquatic activities?
There's not a one size fits all, you know, it's not like we always do 10 miles or something like that, but knowing that that's the only pool within a reasonable distance of Liberty Lake, I would want to make sure we include YMCA. I definitely want to consider, you know, parts of Spokane Valley, so parts of the,
Lansbury.
yeah,
Because
Yeah.
that fields are the, most of our teams use.
yep, yep. County, you know, they're putting in that cross-country track along the
Right.
river too.
And that's not the only pool, by the way. There's one at Tritino.
Okay.
And I did make a pitch, or not a pitch, but for the, I guess it's the Parks and Recreation Committee.
Parks and Arts.
Parks and Arts and Parks, about the need for swimming lessons for our kids, and suggested that they coordinate investigate a program between them and the county using the county lake, using Liberty Lake, the south end where they have a park there. I kind of, it would be an ideal location to teach kids how to swim.
I was just gonna say, there's a pool right there,
Pardon me?
and there's a pool just out where Troy lives. It's a big pool. And the
It's
county.
a little cold in the winter time.
Yeah, well, the county just spent a lot of money doing a.
Absolutely. They did a
huge
nice
improvement
job.
out there, so
Yeah.
that should be part of the
That's a great
the
option.
equation as well as an amenity is talk about this plan, so.
I had a couple comments. First of all, and you probably already told us, who did the survey? Who created it?
We did.
SCJ Alliance.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we
I-
did.
I think it was very well done, and I appreciate that.
Okay.
I worked for the city as the recreation coordinator many moons ago. And so there's a whole nother piece to this that we haven't gotten to yet, but you mentioned it here as far as the public engagement, as far as the programming and events. And that's where I think that the outside influence is going to be important with the survey. And I thought that the survey had a lot of great questions for that. Because that is a big part of it. And Liberty Lake is unique, being the size that we are, and that being able to offer the amount of programs that Liberty Lake does is very difficult because of the size of the city. You don't have enough people to participate in all of these programs, but if you plan it the right way, you can pull some people from the outside to make those programs viable for the residents here, being they have enough participation. So again, double-edged sword as far as getting input from outsiders, but it is very important, I think, as an overall picture for this, especially when it comes to the recreation programming and the events.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I live in Spokane, but I use the Centennial Trail, and then I stop at one of the restaurants and I have lunch, right? Or I go to movies in the park, and then we get ice cream first, you know, so there is that economic piece to bringing people in. So yeah, it's all part of the larger consideration.
Yeah, and without some of those outside people participating in some of the events, you may not even have the funds to fund a recreation program here. And that, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it went away shortly after I left for a while because of budget.
Yeah, I think it went away because of budget and because of staffing and a whole bunch of other reasons. And Jen has slowly begun to build it back through contracts. Now we've hired Mikhail Stevens, and he's just got amazing ideas and is really looking to grow that program again. And we are not the same size we were when we were
Right.
doing it. We're over 14,000 people now. I can't
Mhm.
give you the exact number because it's not official until July 1st. But we're over 14,000.
Yeah, so it was half when I was here. And so that's great that that's there. But that outside influence will help keep that program strong and help keep it self-sustaining so that council doesn't look at it and go, well, geez, that program loses money. Why did we have that going? Where if it's self-sustaining, then that's great.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Yeah, all really good points. I was trying to think of the number, but when the last parks plan was done, I was gonna say, I think the city was about half the size it is now. So it's a different, different experience now.
For sure.
Okay, this is great. I wrote down so many notes, you guys, and we still have a few slides to go if you want to keep the conversation going. Are we okay on time?
You're okay
Yeah.
for time.
Okay, next slide. We've talked about this a little bit, but some of the methods that we're using to engage, the survey is one of them, but we interviewed all of the staff. I think we did 10 interviews. We had our kickoff workshop and heard from the community. This is the flyer we used to promote that event. So we're doing the initial survey that you were referring to, and it's more of a visioning survey. Where do you go when you come here? What do you want to see? That the next survey that we would like to develop is, okay, we heard you want this. Would you like it, the playground this way or this way? So it drills down in a little more detail at some of those programming specific questions or facility specific questions. And so we'll get data on that too, from doing some of the pop-ups and things like that. So the activities we do throughout the summer, they change as we go through the process. So we're not always asking the same question, but it kind of evolves as we get the data. Next slide. So what's going to come out of all this engagement for all of you to see and be informed by, we will have an engagement report at the end of this. And so it'll have a summary from what we heard from both surveys. It'll have an interview summary. It'll have all the workshop summaries, all the pop-up summaries, and you'll have a sense of, well, what did we hear and how does this shape recommendations? So that's ultimately how we intend to, help you make some decisions, is to be able to look easily at that document and pull out what some of the key highlights are. This is just an example of some of the interview questions that we developed to ask staff. So we interviewed, the park superintendent, we interviewed Lisa and Jen and the public works director, some of the maintenance staff. We talked to the deputy chief of police about safety. You all should be happy to hear he really thinks the parks are extremely safe. There weren't a lot of issues. He'd like LED lights, and that was about all we heard. So that was good news. But we have a summary report from all those findings too that will go into that larger engagement deliverable that I was talking about. Next slide. Just the kickoff event itself, we really tried to highlight that it was available for all ages. We tried to have some kids activities so that it would be family friendly. Folks could come with their kids and not be distracted by being with their kids, because we had a coloring table and we had staff available. We didn't see a lot of families, I have to say, at this event. It was from 4 to 6 p.m. It's a tough time for families. So I think we're going to get more of that young people kind of input when we do the pop-up event, like at the park during the middle of the day when families are coming to go play at the playground. But we had 6 different stations with a variety of kind of open prompt questions to very specific, do you want to see this in your park or this in your park? And people could vote. So I think I have pictures on the next slide of just a couple of what those activities look like. That's just a picture of the larger room. We had basically you entered the room and then it was like stations kind of around the perimeter, so people could just sort of flow through each table and offer a different set of input. So we had like sticky note boards, the little pom-poms down at the bottom. There were images of different types of investments, and we asked folks, okay, you get 9 pom-poms. If this was your resource as a city, say this is your monetary resource, where would you invest? And you could divide that equally among the 9 categories, or you could place all of your funding into one. So it was an interesting exercise to kind of ask participants to, if you had a budget and these were all your priorities, how would you balance that? And so we'll probably use that activity again at other engagement opportunities, and then we'll have a larger data source to show you some outcomes from that. These are some of the other engagement opportunities that we've lined out. So I think I mentioned on June 20th, we're going to do a pop-up at Pavilion, and we're going to ask some pretty specific questions about the equipment at Pavilion, because we've heard that's a priority, is to update that equipment. Right now, I think it serves 5 to 10-year-olds and not that 2 to 5 age group. So we're going to ask the community about that. We're going to be at the Touch a Truck event. We'll be at one of the farmers markets in July. We're going to go to Barefoot in the Park, and then we'll be at the leading up to that symphony event at 6. We're going to get there at about 4. So as people are coming to get their good spot with their chair, hopefully they'll come talk to us and give us some input. Will they at 4? They're already there. Well, maybe we should go earlier. Yeah. But that's a general overview of kind of how we're going to spread the engagement out throughout the summer. We're hoping to put this, for example, on that Facebook page you were talking about, and on the city's page, and maybe on your front door, wherever you guys want to put it to help promote that.
I'm kind of surprised you're not going to be at the park for July 4th.
We talked about that one. I think some folks thought, people are there for that specific activity, and they might not be as willing to be engaged in a engagement kind of exercise. I don't know.
I think that was the conversation that I heard was basically a question about how much quality engagement will you get at that? And again, there's kind of an art to finding a sweet spot. You want to have a lot of people there, but you also want to have them willing to engage on the topic that.
I look at that as equivalent to the symphony myself,
Mhm.
but I know there'll be a lot of people there. So.
Yeah. Well, we have all the materials. And so it's certainly, we've been working with the Engagement Commission, and some of the folks on the commission are willing to, volunteer their time and host one of the tables. And so it's certainly available as an opportunity if the city wants to do more than what's listed here. You can go to the next slide. So just in terms of where we're at, we've done site visits. Chris Overdorf, that I introduced early on in one of the slides, he came out and did a tour with Mikhail and another maintenance staff, and looked at all the parks and took photos and, looked at all the equipment, and he was super impressed. He said it was one of the best maintained park systems he's ever seen, just so you know. But so all of that inventory was conducted. So he's going to start doing that analysis on the life cycle status and things like that. Next slide. And then we did the same thing for arts. We came out and looked at all of the art. We took photos. I know you have photos on your website, but we took some as well for this report. And then we tried to develop a little bit of some metrics to assess make recommendations for art. So it's hard to see in this table, and I can send this to all of you when it's finalized, but we categorized the art by type, because the Parks Arts strategic plan identifies like 5 different types of art. So we categorized it within the 5. So we can see, oh, well, you have 10 pieces that are all of one category, for example. That would be an easy way to make a recommendation you need more in category 3. And then the other thing we did was there were goals within that strategic plan. And so we identified which of the art pieces aligns with the goal. And so we can also see, are you missing art that represents goal 3 or something like that? So we're just starting to do some of that assessment piece now that we've done the inventory. And then we've identified, is the art from a local artist, and, how old is it, and roughly what did it cost? Just so you can measure that too.
Was it all the outside that you're showing here, or did you do the inside art too?
Like at the event center?
Like that one that's sitting right up there behind Lisa. That's a donated piece of historical art.
Oh,
And these that are in the back wall.
we didn't do those.
Yeah.
We didn't do those.
There's quite a few. And then in the River District, there's quite a bit of art that is incorporated into some of the new buildings. So.
Okay, so yeah, okay, I'll write that down, because there were some pieces on display like at the event center where we had the kickoff event, and I know we captured those, but I don't think we have
And
these.
those are relatively new.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, next slide. we're almost done, guys. This is the community context report, just an excerpt from it so you can see. This is just showing you, we're looking at the population, we're looking at demographics, we're looking at trends. So you have that context of where and how the city's grown. We did like a population pyramid of the various age groups. You probably already realized this from doing the comp plan. You've got a lot of folks in the younger demographic and a lot of folks in the older demographic, and then it's lean in the middle. And so that's interesting. Sometimes you see it more evenly distributed. But that younger demographic, if we're looking at a 20-year horizon, will soon be that middle demographic, right? So it's just an interesting data point. So this report is just, we're kind of doing quality assurance on it right now, and it's going to be ready for Lisa and Jen to review here real soon. Next slide. Okay, next steps. So this is that same kind of timeline that I was showing you. So we're really finishing up the engagement over the summer. We're doing the demands and needs analysis, and then we're starting to look at the goals and objectives and make recommendations. So it's got to be wrapped up by October. So we're in the thick of it. Yeah. Any other questions, guys? I appreciate that it was kind of conversational and discussion. That's nice.
Good presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen.
Yeah. Happy to.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, parks planning is where my heart's at. I worked at Commerce for 6 years, like land use planning is what I went to school for, but parks planning is where my heart is. So happy to do it. Thanks, guys. Have a
Thank you.
good rest of your meeting and question. Awesome.
Thank you.
After that, we will move on now to the natural environment chapter red lines. Director Key.
So actually, I am going to turn over the share to Amy. And Amy is going to walk us through the climate
Oh,
natural.
good. There's a lot of red lines there.
There are lots of red lines.
They're good red lines. I like.
All right. So, good afternoon, everyone. This one is not going to be as pretty as the previous presentation, but we'll get through it. So before we get into the actual language changes, I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of context about what we're planning so that you guys kind of understand what we're asking from you. So eventually we're planning so the natural environment chapter is pre-existing. It exists in our comp plan right now. And we are planning to combine that with the climate stuff that's coming through. So what we haven't done, and so eventually we'll have just the climate and natural resources chapter. So what we didn't do, because we're going to have all of the climate stuff coming in and then we have to incorporate it into this, is I didn't focus on formatting. All I'm asking you guys to look at right now is the language itself and try not to focus too much on where things are within the chapter and just look at the language itself. There will be some, so the hope is that we will get most of the language reviewed by you guys and get your feedback and get it incorporated. And then once we do that incorporation and we merge the two chapters, it'll be a little bit easier. And hopefully the red lines themselves will be a little bit easier for people to read. There will be some additional language changes because we'll have to do some transitions and we'll have to do some looking for redundancy. There is a lot of crossover between what exists in this natural environment chapter and what we're proposing for the resiliency. So we will have to do some edits for that. But again, it's trying to kind of take it in bite-sized chunks so that when we bring stuff to you, it's readable and it's understandable what we're proposing to change. Also, because of the nature of the edits, I didn't put any of this into an additional PowerPoint presentation. We're just gonna go through the chapter as the red lines appear in the chapter. So it's very difficult to get some of this stuff to show up in a PowerPoint. So that'll be a little bit different. So on this first page, as you can see, we're proposing to change the title to reflect what I said earlier, that we're going to be merging the two. And we're also proposing to incorporate a new photo since the Spokane River is not actually in the city. So does anybody have any comments on the first page? All right. So page 2. Go right in here. So In the final version, what we're going to be doing is we're going to move the goals and policies up underneath the introduction. So that's one of those formatting changes that we didn't make because it made the red lines very difficult to read. So in the final version, what you'll see is you'll have the introduction and then we'll have the goals, and underneath each goal, we'll arrange the policies that are looking to achieve that goal. So you'll see the goals and then policies underneath, and then another goal and policies underneath. But for this one, they're just all at the end again, so that it just makes it a little bit easier to see.
Yeah, we went through the exercise of doing that, and it was so confusing that we no, we'll just have to hold off on that.
Yeah, it was difficult to see what is existing and what we're proposing to change. So that's just something for the future. So this was just a couple of edits for some clarity and to update. Before I move on, does anybody have any comments or feedback on what's being proposed on this second page?
The only question I had is where this is gonna exist for a while, do we really need to enumerate the House bill that we're doing, or do we just want to say aligns with the directives of the state?
Yeah, we could do that.
Because nobody's gonna remember House Bill 1181 any.
That's a really great point. At the end of this, the council has to pass a resolution
Yeah.
that says that they're aligning with it. So I'm not sure that it actually needs to be in the document, but.
Yeah, I don't think, the number to me is just,
We've done that in a couple places where we feel like it's important to communicate to the public
Sure.
that we're being required to do this.
it's just that 1181A may come around the next time and we're in compliance with the state.
That's fair.
That's my point.
Yeah, I agree. Any other thoughts or comments on this page? Okay. So this is just another function of the woes of formatting in Word. So it will not look like this in the final version. But in this one, we're just cleaning up, doing a rewriting of the existing language for clarity. Again, I'm not gonna read all of these to you guys. I will spare you all that, and I'm assuming that most of you have read this from it being in your packet, so.
Good, yeah, that's for sure.
So does anybody have any comments or thoughts or feedback on the changes proposed on this page?
Sorry, which,
Page 3.
Amy, I just have,
do I have page numbers on this? Yeah.
Just flip it over. I can see it. Nope, turn it.
If you
There.
look up here, you can see you can see the image. You can't read it, but you can see the image of what.
I can.
Okay.
I don't have any language, but I would just suggest getting rid of the pictures.
Getting rid
There's only two of them after the one that you're changing.
Mhm.
'Cause they don't appear anywhere else, so.
Yep, agreed.
In fact, Lance has been working on getting new pictures for the whole comp plan because they're all dated.
Why do we need to have pictures in the document for the comp plan?
Eye candy.
We can do that during PowerPoint presentations, okay?
Moving on to page number 4. So again, most of this was just editing for clarity. For the wetlands, we did add a little bit of discussion down at the bottom to kind of talk about Liberty Lake's unique context, that we don't really have very many significant wetlands, and that is something that's notable.
Yeah, I had a question. It's the, at the north end of the lake, when they open up the gate and empty the lake and it goes through that channel that goes right by the golf course.
Mhm.
Is that, who owns that land?
So that's actually owned by Liberty Lake Sewer and Water District.
That's what, but even the creek and the channel and all that that's not part of the city of Liberty Lake.
It's not owned by this, it is within the city of Liberty Lake, but is not
Not
owned.
owned. So, okay.
Lisa, question. Amy, question. We don't have any wetlands in Liberty Lake, correct?
We have what I understand to be that little piece that Jim Baumgar was just talking about, and there's like one little piece
Is
that's.
that a recognized U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service recognized wetland?
No.
Okay. So
That's why and that's one of the points is that, in fact, there's another one that is by Legacy Ridge Drive that is a little piece that is identified as a wetland, but I actually doubt that it really is one. But it was classified as a potential wetland. And back in the day, the county, when the county was subdivided, the county just had them do it as a tract, a wetland tract, even
So-
though.
No federal agency recognizes any wetlands in Liberty Lake.
At this point, no, and they would be, if they did, they would be under the acreage that the Army Corps would even be
So
interested in.
then, if you just go fast forward to the goals at the end of this section, there are two goals that talk about wetlands. Why do we have them? in this
I
document?
actually, we have a critical area ordinance that we're required to have related to those wetlands. We do have to do reviews if if we come across an area where there is a suspected wetland, they would have to hire a biologist to come in
To
and
certify or not?
yes.
Okay.
And we've actually, the school district actually went through that process when they were developing Ridgeline High School because the old canal that's over there, that's all dried up anyhow, but was listed as a potential critical area, and so they hired a wetland biologist to come in and actually certify that it was not. And they were able
So
to,
that's why we have those two specific goals in this element. Because we might,
and because we're required to.
because we're required. And that's the Department of Ecology.
It's actually within part of the Growth Management Act, yeah. So the whole critical areas pieces, yes, ecology, but also commerce.
Mhm.
We get it from
Okay.
both sides.
Thanks.
So the only other section of edits on this is just updating the aquifer, the discussion on the aquifer for just accuracy and clarity. So before I move on, are there any other comments on this page? Alright. Page 5. So this is a continuation of the aquifer discussion, the replaced language right here at the top. So on this heading, I'm just proposing that we delete that specific heading because it doesn't seem to tie everything together, but keep the content underneath. And then the stormwater was another section that was, the discussion was very general and it didn't seem to really discuss the importance and the investment that the city has made in stormwater. And so this piece right here was just a rewrite for clarity and accuracy.
I have a question. This aquifer business is, I think it's incredibly important. Because what typically happens is you don't see it and you don't really know about it until you get to the point where you have a critical issue. In this section, the first paragraph, you talk about critical aquifer recharge areas. Is there gonna be a map that shows where those are?
So we actually do have a map. We could actually provide that, but it's almost the entire city of Liberty Lake. Almost the
That's
entire,
important though.
it is, it is, yes.
It's explained later on as to how it's done, but
And that theme, in my mind, developing general plans, comprehensive plans in the past. A lot of the documents included maps. And I think maps are really great for the public, because then they can understand the breadth of issues. Especially in critical resource areas like aquifer recharge, like, critical slope areas, like if you have wetlands, where are they? So people can understand the significance of these issues. Will this element include maps that show all of these critical resource areas?
But yes,
yes.
It will.
Yep.
Okay.
I love maps too.
And it explains what we do with stormwater right in the middle of that last paragraph too.
Thank you.
So from a clarity standpoint, we're not having pictures, but we're having maps.
That is what I am taking away from this.
Okay.
Pretty maps.
Well, pretty, that's what I'd like to.
as pretty as we can make them.
This is, we have Parks and Recreation. And we also have volumes of information that we're putting out to the public. I don't know how often people are going to read this material, but it would be a lot more fun to read if there were, say, a artist drawing of an aquifer, or an artist drawing of, say, like a mountain, or an artist drawing of what we're trying to explain. And it could be just a couple lines, but it brings more life to the actual document. Especially if we're going to eliminate pictures.
Amy, do we have a map of where the aquifer
Hmm?
is?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is under the entire city.
Yeah, I know. I just have never seen
Mm.
the extent of it because
I've never
it
seen-
doesn't recognize state borders.
Yeah, my office, anybody, it's tattered and worn, but I'm happy to share it.
That was just to Gene's point, that somebody could sketch. That's all.
Yeah, we don't need the actual sterile map,
No,
you know, a characterization of a map.
Gotta be a minute, right?
There is a map.
a big map. It's
How many
not pretty.
gallons a day? Do you know how many gallons a day the wastewater treatment plant processes?
No, and it's not all of the city of Liberty Lake. So part of it is with Liberty Lake Water and Sewer District. Part of it is with Spokane County as part of our as part of the greenhouse gas analysis. I think that we figured out some of that, but I don't think that the number is like,
Where's the water going?
so
Goes
Is
back
it
to
going to recharge?
The river.
river.
it goes to the river,
It goes to the river.
which eventually recharges. Yes.
So when those folks come in and talk to us about as a part of the infrastructure element, I guess, you would know more about quality of water that's going in the river,
Yes.
whether it's class 1, class 2, class 3.
Yes. You can ask all those.
The River
questions.
Keeper has all that data.
Sorry,
Spokane River Keeper has all that data right online. 34 million gallons to answer your question.
34 million a day.
Daily, 34 million gallons of wastewater daily. It's all on the Spokane River Keeper website.
That's for the whole region.
That's just for I just asked I only asked for Spokane wastewater treatment. So that's the answer that pops up.
Wait, I looked.
It's a lot of water.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other feedback or comments on this page, page 5?
I mean, what was wrong with, the second paragraph on that page begins with the Spokane Valley Rathdrum Prairie Aquifer. You crossed that out
Mm-hmm.
and eliminated it. Is it a bad paragraph?
It was not as comprehensive and it was the language to me was not as clear and as comprehensive as I wanted it to be, but I did take these pieces and make sure that they were still captured in what I did put in there.
Okay, thanks.
So, yeah. Okay. So moving on to the next page. It's just a little bit left right there. About the stormwater. And then with fish and wildlife habitat conservation areas, this piece was just updated again for accuracy and clarity. WAC numbers change, so where I can, I would prefer not to be so specific. Particularly in this case, they're directing people to a resource list, and so providing the name of the list, I think, gets people to the resource that they're looking for without citing a specific WAC.
That's almost a site-specific issue, is it not? I mean,
What's that?
endangered species, that kind of thing.
Yes, but
It's gonna be-
the state maintains that. We actually, if you recall back looking at the critical area ordinances, we actually provide the reference to the table that the state puts out that they update periodically. And it's updated for the specific region. They actually have an interactive map at that website where you can zero into your area and actually see mapped the different.
Does it get down to the parcel level? I found that hard to believe.
So they don't, identify parcels. What it is it's a geographic map. If you can
Sure.
see where the city boundaries are, you can see where the roads are, you can see where whatever. So you can figure out if it's your parcel or not, but they don't actually have parcels on there.
Thank you.
And that's, but, and again, I want to underscore, that's actually referenced in the critical area ordinance that you guys already have reviewed the updates to.
Thank you.
Any more comments on this page? So the geologically hazardous areas was again just rewritten for clarity and tone. The shoreline section was another one that was very general and didn't really talk about Liberty Lake's unique shoreline context, which it is very unique in in that we don't have shorelines, but we do have an area that touches on the jurisdiction of the Shoreline Management Act. So we will have to do some things at a certain point when funding is available. And that discussion happens on the next page. But before I move on, are there any comments on this page?
I have a quick question. I've lived here since 2018. It was brought to my attention over the weekend. We have a recovered garbage landfill within the city limits. Should we be addressing that somewhere in here? I mean, you can't build on it, right? It has to be maintained. But is that a hazardous area?
There's
How would
actually,
we address that?
there's actually a plume associated with that. It is, and there are some plume easements that actually fall on several parcels over in the Country Vista area. It is owned by the county. It is zoned as public/open space for precisely that reason. It is monitored by the county and the Department of Ecology. And we have conversations with them because of the plume, there are certain areas where we have to avoid having stormwater recharge. And so we actually dealt with that with when we were designing Kramer Parkway, because we had to kind of relocate some of the stormwater treatment because they didn't want it to percolate down through the plume and potentially expand them.
So my question is, should that be part of the comprehensive plan, that specific area?
I mean, certainly we could do a write-up about what it is. It is not within the area of responsibility of the city, but it is certainly something that we have to be cognizant of.
There's
It'd be a nice CYA to have it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about the lake and it's not in our jurisdiction either, so
Right.
why don't we just identify it?
It's just, I think you probably just should address it.
Yeah.
That we know it's there, we understand it, we're
And
not,
it ain't ours.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
I agree.
it could affect us though, so.
Yeah, I know.
So to add to that, then what about the CV site where the gun club was?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
It's being remediated.
That's been mitigated.
right, but
But that's been mitigated.
It's not mitigated yet, but
It's
it's
not
in
yet.
process.
So Lisa, the county owns the land?
The county owns land, yes.
County owns it.
Yes, county sells.
They do all the monitoring?
They do, and they have to report to ecology. Whenever I have any conversations with anybody about the landfill, it's always copying both the county, the solid waste person, and also a person at ecology who's responsible for overseeing the monitoring thereof.
Hey, Lisa?
Yeah.
Is there any methane monitoring?
So what we understand is that it's, now this is something that I think is a little interesting because you do see the vent pipes, but apparently they're,
Leachate probably.
I'm sorry?
Leachate,
Ah,
they test for water.
So it is, I believe, a clay lined landfill. So, well, that's not the most cutting edge technology,
Back
HDPE
then it
line.
was.
Yeah, it was back then, but it is a clay lined landfill. So there is some protection, but as I said, there is some, I really don't know. It has been closed since 1972, so there's probably very little ongoing decomposition going on, so I doubt that there's very.
Yeah,
much.
I was told that it was dormant, that there is no more carbon monoxide emissions or methane emissions.
Right, and that's what we heard, that's what we got from Ecology and from Spokane County
Right.
when we were doing the GHG analysis.
Right.
It surprised me a little bit,
Could that
but
be a parks asset?
it could potentially, but having dealt with the person at the county that deals with their.
Probably not.
They think that the value would only be reduced by 10%. To buy a Superfund site. I had that conversation with them when I was with the city, like, okay.
Hey,
The
sorry,
city of Spokane, I should clarify.
Okay.
All right, anything else on this page before we move on?
Yeah, in the first paragraph,
The first paragraph
of the page.
Okay.
It says the following, which is crossed out, many of goals and policies. I know it's minute, but it just seems like a weird phrase to me. And then I also, it said in here that a wide variety of the outdoor recreation activities are valued by residents and visitors and contribute to the local economy and quality of life. The preservation of fish and wildlife habitat is key to the continued existence of these species in the future. I'm not understanding that language. So I know that's two things. First part is the following many of goals, which following is crossed out.
So the goals are no longer going to be following because they're right after the introduction. That's number one.
Right.
Number two, not all the goals are about fish and wildlife. Some of them are about water conservation. Some of them are about, there's a variety of different goals. So they don't all deal with fish and wildlife.
Oh, no, I understand that. I'm just saying the wording is weird. The many of goals.
You gotta cross out many of too.
Right.
The following goals.
It's many of the goals.
Many of the goals. There you go. And then again, the middle part of that, preservation of fish and wildlife, blah, 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 and continued existence of these species in the future.
Actually, Lisa, it's not that. It's the goals. Forget about many of. The goals and policies in this chapter articulate.
Okay, that's fair.
Yep.
I'm just, okay, so that's what Commissioner Solberg said, but then also the continued existence of these species in the future. What are we referring to exactly? And also the wide variety of outdoor
So
recreation
propose some
activities.
language. We only kind of changed what's jumped out at us. This is old language. You
Right. And
propose.
I'm
something.
proposing that just all gets taken out. I don't see the point of it, I guess.
Okay.
That whole sentence.
That was it for me. Thank you.
A sharp pencil tree.
It's okay. So this is just the continuation of the shoreline section. Those are the only changes that were made on this page. Is there any comments or feedback on the new section up here at the top?
I like where you moved it to the beginning. And the new wording. In shorter sentences.
Are we good to move on? Any other additional comments? Here. So on this air quality section, I almost started to rewrite it, but then I realized that this is going to have a lot of crossover with what we're doing with the greenhouse gas and the wildfire smoke and the other things that are coming out of the climate element. So I really just left this as a placeholder for something for me to make sure that within those discussions, we're talking about air quality generally, as well as the specific pieces, so that we don't lose what's in here that's not greenhouse gas and wildfire smoke, but also captures the entire conversation that needs to happen around air quality. So this one's just a placeholder of things to come. So now we're into goals and policies. So these first three goals right here, are existing in the comp plan today. There was some updates for, just for clarity and accuracy. Just updating some of the language to make sure that we're being clear about what we're saying. Is there any comments or feedback on the edits that we're proposing on here?
Maybe under air quality,
Yes.
it says a variety of air pollution control strategies have been employed in the city of Liberty Lake. The strategies include auto emission inspections. Are we indeed doing that?
I do not know the answer to that. I
No,
doubt
so
it.
they stopped. They stopped, yeah, no, they stopped doing that, because cars before a certain age had to have that done, but I think all
Some jurisdictions do that. I mean, they inspect everything, right?
no, the state used to require the
Mhm.
air emission inspections, and that changed, gosh, it changed probably
Several years ago.
several years ago. Anyhow.
So we're not doing that.
So we need
State's
to
not
cross
doing
that
it,
out.
we're not
Yeah.
doing it.
Mhm.
Right,
Strategies.
Correct.
correct.
Okay, so take that out.
Which, give me a policy number or goal number.
Air quality, right in the
Air
middle.
quality,
Oh, okay.
under strategies.
Strategies include and then move the restriction on open burning.
Oh, well, we're, okay, so that whole paragraph is
said.
going away.
And it's just a
Going
placeholder.
away.
It's just a placeholder, yes. Yes, for, once we incorporate the other chapters.
Is there anything else on the goals that are at the bottom of the page?
Nope.
So the first thing on this page that I wanted to draw attention to is this natural environment goal number 5. This one is a new goal. And it's just kind of, it's looking to emphasize the importance of stormwater and setting goals for us to maintain our stormwater system.
And it's actually just a restatement of one that's already in our the stormwater master plan that was recently adopted.
Looks familiar.
Okay. The next, so I'm not going to read all of these to you. So if anything jumps out at you or if there's anything that you want to comment on, please do so. The next one that I wanted to draw your attention to is this natural environment policy number 5. Encourage public and private groups to consider protection and or acquisition of wetlands and their buffer areas. Protecting wetlands is not optional to be considered. It's required by state law. Also, the acquisition of such, I'm not sure is the appropriate role for the city. And so staff is proposing that we delete this particular policy, natural environment policy number 5. So also because of the limited wetlands that we have in the city.
We've addressed that, so.
Well, and since we don't have any,
Yeah, that's.
it's a nonsensical goal policy.
I'm glad you
The
agree.
state requires that we deal with it, right?
Well, we've mentioned it.
It does, and so I'm not saying that we don't, I'm not saying that we don't have any known. And again, until a wetlands biologist comes in and confirms it, but the soil types generally speaking in the city are such that they're not, that we've got river rock. Most of the native soil is river rock. It would be highly unlikely for us to have any, but I can't say definitively that we don't.
Amy, what about the policy number 4 on the shorelines? We don't have shorelines, right?
We don't have shorelines, but we
Doesn't-
do have an area that is within the 200 feet of the ordinary
Okay.
high water mark. So we do have some planning obligations under the Shoreline Management Act.
Okay.
So that's, and again, it is required for us to have something.
That was gonna be my next question, is required.
Yeah,
Sure.
it is
Okay,
required.
thank you.
So the next one I'll draw your attention to is down here in natural environment policy number 9. Encourage the application of permeable and semi-permeable surfaces to parking areas. This is a dated policy that we have come to learn that these things are not very effective, particularly in climates like ours. And so we're proposing to delete this particular policy.
It was very aspirational 20 years ago.
Yep.
So, oh, I guess I should ask, is there anything else on this page before we move on? And number 11. So the one that I'm gonna, again, draw your attention to is policy 14. Explore the feasibility of encouraging double metering for irrigation in all new developments. This is something that would be squarely in the jurisdiction of Liberty Lake Sewer Water District and likely would not encourage water conservation. So it is another one that we are proposing to delete.
Why would you, so you're proposing to take this out?
Correct.
Why?
Well, because number one, we would not have control over the double metering. That would be Liberty Lake Water Sewer District. And number two, as far as water conservation, from what I was able to research about that, it does not encourage water conservation.
Which is on the notes right to the right of it. She's explained why she wants it out.
Sorry?
It's right in the, on the side.
If you look at the
question.
comment on the margin.
Comment.
Well,
It's-
okay,
Kind of
Footnotes.
explanation.
acknowledging that.
Mhm.
We have 30 million gallons a day of water going into the river. Why shouldn't the city proactively take the role or take the position that reusing that water for irrigation for parks would be, or roadway medians would be a good idea as a goal to
So-
help with recharge and get rid of, and eliminating dumping the water into the river.
So water reuse is definitely something that we are looking to encourage and will be included in the resiliency goals that'll come back to you as far as reusing water and capturing that water.
Okay.
Double metering, from my understanding, is having 2 meters, water meters on your property. One is for your residential use and the other is for your irrigation water. And so that's just allows a water purveyor to charge different rates for different water usage types
That's true.
versus
Typically, you can't use it, most jurisdictions will not allow you to use that water for single family use. But for multifamily, for common area, it's an accepted use like the roadway median parks. If it meets a certain standard quality.
But when you double meter, you're double metering the domestic water source. It's double metering is not the purple pipes. It's not the same thing. Double metering is just saying, we've got one main, but I'm going to charge you a different rate for you're using this domestic water in your house, which then will go down drains versus using it in your yard, which will then just be recharged. And so but it's the same water source. The reuse of water, and then again, as Amy said, when we're going to be talking about resiliency goals at I have to look. We're coming back to you with resiliency goals at the June 25th. No, it's not. They'll be coming back to you soon. And we do talk about that significantly, but more of that concept of trying to reuse the water supply and instead of sending it to the river, to try and use it in beneficial reuse.
July 9th, Lisa.
Thank you. I'm sorry. That's what happens when yeah. Yes, July 9th.
July 9th.
Yeah, so, yeah, there you go.
Thank you. Thanks, Ann.
Are there any other thoughts, comments on this page before we move on? So on this last page, the only thing you can see what's new is we have 2 new policies looking to support and achieve the new stormwater goal.
Well worded too.
What is are we talking about, what's the dedicated stormwater utility fee? What is that?
So it's something that's already in place. We have you have a stormwater fee that's collected by the county it's based on impervious surface. For residential uses, it assumes a certain average impervious surface, but for commercial purposes, they have to actually indicate what that is. We certify that when we issue their certificate of occupancy, and that goes to the assessor. We also have the APA rates, that's
I've
the
never
aquifer
seen it,
protection.
so is that something I pay every year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to do it. I didn't know I was doing it, so. Is that my property tax?
It would be in your property tax bill, but it's a separate line item. If you go into Scout for your
Yeah,
property,
it's okay. I'm already doing it. I'm doing it. That's okay.
$34.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
So that's all I have for you on this. I have some notes about what we've talked about, but that's all that I have. Unless anybody has some more feedback or other suggestions they'd like to see.
Nice job. Thank you. It's quite, very clear. I appreciate that. So we'll move on to citizen comments. Do we have any citizens online, Evan?
No.
All right, seeing none, we will move on to secretary's report.
yeah, so a couple things. I just wanted to update this. Some of these dates are really hot off the presses. We've been working hard on our engagement for several different elements of the comp plan. Again, we'll continue to be at the farmer's market. I think Lance is going to be there, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. And we do have that scheduled throughout the summer. Parks and Rec Plan Survey is ongoing, as Jen indicated to you. That will run through the end of June. We're trying to stagger some of these surveys that are out there. We have our virtual town hall meeting tomorrow, 6 to 7:30. I will send you all an invitation if I haven't already.
We accept it.
The June 16th through the 25th, we will have our sign code virtual open house and visual preferencing survey up. This is a little different. It has a lot of information about the comp plan and also some visual preferencing. So it's both education and survey. We're going to send it out to all of our city commissions. We're going to send it out to our all of our stakeholder groups. We're going to push it out through all the people who are signed up for Notify Me as it relates to development stuff, because I think it's a little wonky. We're hoping that, you know, I think it's one of those things that most people wouldn't even blink at, but I think that it's important that we get some of our key informants, some of our engaged citizens, and our engaged businesses to really weigh in on this. So we will be pushing it out that way. And we also are ready to launch our climate element virtual open house. However, we're kind of staggering that. So we're going to put that out June 23rd and have it run through July 21st. Again, trying to stagger how we push out the information on these. August 2nd, we still have the comp plan booth at Barefoot in the Park. And we're still looking at a housing town hall sometime in September or October. And Firewise and energy conservation town halls in September and October. And then also, I want you to be aware of dates for city council in case any of you are interested in coming out and supporting when staff goes to present on the work that you're doing. It's always great to have some of our planning commissioners there. So in GHG sub-element, we're going to be doing a workshop on July 1st with city council, and we're going to be asking them to provide us, to give us approval to submit the working draft of the GHG sub-element to Commerce for review and voluntary approval. And so we do that, and then we'll come back to, we'll get it back with comments, we'll make some changes, And we'll then incorporate it into the whole document, but that's, the benefit of doing that is that if we get sued over the greenhouse gas piece, Commerce has to defend us in court. That's a good deal. The resiliency sub-element workshop is going to be on August 5th at City Council. And
Just to be there for that.
I'm sorry,
Do you need us to be there for that?
not necessarily, but you're certainly welcome to.
I'll just zoom in.
Sign code and co-housing amendments. So we'll be workshopping that with City Council on September 23rd with a hearing on October 7th. You'll see on your calendars that we bumped out the co-housing and sign code hearing. We had some real challenges with the engagement survey and and we did not want to have that. So we had to come up with the different platforms on the city.
Any other questions on that? We'll move to planning commissioner reports. Anyone? No vacation news or anything, huh? All right. Then we are open for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Jinks and Commissioner Garcia second. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.
Hey.
Thank you.